damn
it.
can.
Well, no, you know what? On a closed
We'll have to
session,
come up with
I'm
something
gonna
that
have-
rhymes for the other one. Yeah.
You're not telling me. I thought it was 2:30 here.
Sure.
Good job, very resourceful.
Funny is Jeff had just mentioned that at our hurricane meeting the other day. I wasn't anywhere, so we see the data.
So we're at negative, it graphs out where minor, moderate, major flooding is, and what we did. It was pretty interesting. Okey dokey. Yes, sir. I can share it with you now. Yeah, that's all you gotta do, and then then I'll call. And I will forward you, I'll send an email to my team this morning too. It gives you more, like, I mean, because telling you that it's -1 right now doesn't tell you anything. Right?
Right.
Well, yeah, that's what I figured, but, yeah, I gotta wait, because it's gotta be a unanimous deal, but it'll be unanimous to go to. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the September 25th, 2023 meeting of the Smithfield Town Council Committee to order. Mr. Hall.
Mr. Mayor, this time I make a motion that pursuant to code number 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia, make a motion we go into a closed session.
Is there a second to the motion? Second. Second by Mr. Smith. Call the question, please.
Vice Mayor Butler?
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Mayor Bowman?
Yes. We will be in closed session for a very short period of time. After that, we will reconvene. Thank you.
Nice that they printed it.
I'd like to reconvene the September 25th, 2023 Smithfield Town Council Committee meetings to order. Mr. Hall.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we close the closed session pursuant to 2.2-37711A3 Code of Virginia.
And that code section relates specifically to the acquisition and disposition of real property, correct?
Correct.
Is there a second to the motion? Second. Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, call the question, please.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hall, Mr. Pack,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
Mayor Bowman.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is public comments. I have one person signed up, Mr. Mark Gay. Mr. Gay?
Mayor, as he's coming up, you also need a motion that only appropriate matters were discussed while in closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hall that only matters were discussed pursuant to the code section.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second to the motion? Further discussion? Call the question again, please, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
Mr. Pack,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, Mrs. Roundtree,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Yes.
Mayor Bowman.
Yes. Now, Mr. Gay, floor is yours, sir.
Good afternoon, Martin Game, 110 Goosey Way. I'd like to offer a citizen's rebuttal to an extremely unfair and prejudicial comment made by one of you during the closing of last month's town council meeting. What I heard, and what many others have since told me they also heard, was a council member's stated opinion that many town residents were and remain firm in their opposition to any development whatsoever of the Pierceville Farm acreage. I thought I would refresh memory with historical fact. Yes, more than 240 residents of the historic district and Goose Hill petitioned town council in early 2015 to deny the intensive 151 home development of the Pierceville tract, as compared to only 5 opponents who then lived between the bridges and by the 10 Main and South Main. Through many meetings of the Planning Commission, the Board of Historical Review, the Public Buildings and Welfare Committee meeting, and separate workshop, and finally town council for repetitive sessions, the public delivered overwhelming factual evidence about the challenges of traffic, school density, water and sewer stormwater management, the prospect of African American graves on the property, and the aesthetic compatibility with the historic district. Any of this sound familiar? Fortunately, common sense prevailed finally, and council rejected the developer's proposal by a 3-2 vote. And yes, a sizable number of us questioned the need to convert a uniquely historical property in the town of Smithfield's last available green space to an overdeveloped asphalt jungle. Working with the Trust of Public Land, we approached several individuals with high net worth to solicit donations of $300,000 to $500,000 apiece to help offset the trust offered to purchase the acreage from the Crockett family, $1.6 million. Each refused to include Joe Root III. The business plan was completed, and copies presented both the town manager and the then mayor, detailing a phased preservation plan for the Pierce home and outbuildings that was prepared by 2 of Virginia's leading architectural designers for historical preservation. None of those copies were apparently distributed initially to other council members. However, the town manager emailed that approximately $500,000 would be available in the town's 2017 budget to secure the TPL deal. Encouraged by that email, I attended the July 2016 Public Buildings and Welfare Committee meeting as the then Executive Director for Preserve Smithfield. To my surprise, as I walked in, I witnessed Carter Williams, Milton Cook, and Bill Riddick coaching Randy Pack on how to request the funds that had been identified for Pierceville to support Mr. Pack's nonprofit construction of 2 additional barns at Windsor Castle Park. No business plan was presented, and the town taxpayers were already on the hook for an additional $2 million for restoration of the Betts home and barns at Windsor Castle, because the same individuals, most of whom were also on the board of directors for Windsor Castle Park Foundation and the Smithfield, Virginia Events Board, were the same people who had already run off the Denton Weiss family and Smithfield Winery, who had proposed to renovate the Windsor Castle on their personal dime. Nonetheless, council approved the $350,000 obligation of public funds to Mr. Pack on a non-quorum 2-to-1 vote, which I believe to be illegal under Virginia statute. Lastly, I approached another councilman who was then on the PB&W committee and presented appropriate extracts of the Pierceville business plan and asked the individual to simply call Linda Frost at the Trust for Public Land. The request was initially handed off to then committee chairman Milton Cook, who actually made the call to Ms. Frost. However, when she politely told Mr. Milton that the town and the Trust for Public Land, working together, could preserve the Pierceville farm and the buildings, Mr. Cook curtly informed her that the town had no such interest, and instead asked Ms. Frost for additional TPL funds to support the Windsor Castle project. So there was no blind zealotry involved in seeking our preservation objectives, but simply a deep and abiding respect for the uniqueness of this town and the rich history of the 1635 Goose Hill land grant and the impressive contributions of Thomas Pierce and his son to that history. My hope and the expectation of many town citizens is that we can move forward to a better place, where 21st century governance by our elected and appointed officials is grounded upon educated and experienced wisdom, and with constructive willingness to listen and engage in meaningful dialogue as our representatives, and not upon how long one has been here or about whom your buddies are. I am an optimist by nature, and I am confident that a win-win for Pierceville can yet be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gay. I don't have anyone else signed up. Does anyone else wish to be heard?
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Brown, if I could.
Mr. Pack, floor is yours.
Mr. Gay, you like to put out some allegations and today you use my name. And just because you say it's true does not make it true, sir. That's fair. You can say any of your belief, but that does not make it factual. And I don't like my name besmudged like that, when all I've tried to do is nothing but what the best is for this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pack. Next item on the agenda is Public Safety Committee, operational updates. That would be Council Members Hall, Roundtree, and Brooks. Chairman Hall.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Have an operational update, August activity report, Chief Howell.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. You have our activity report for the month of August. I'll be happy to answer any questions that members of council may have concerning that activity report. And if none, I'll move forward to the operational updates. As you all know, that on next week, we'll be hosting our National Night Out on Tuesday from 5 to 7. We're looking to have a great time there. I know the town council meeting has been moved to that Wednesday night, so members of council can attend. I spoke with one of the officers, Sergeant McGow, who's planning this event, and he assured me that we'll have a grand time. He's also assured me that we're going to have good weather for this event. So I set the bar kind of high for that. So I hope to see many of you there for that event. Also, in the form of operational updates, you all should have received an email concerning the top cop. This year we have 3 officers nominated to receive that award on October the 28th. And so hopefully those that can attend will be able to attend that event. This is the first year that we've had 3 officers being nominated, and actually they're being nominated for the same event. So we look forward to seeing you all there. In front of you, we have placed a calendar, Smithfield Police Department calendar. There's been a question about how old the lieutenant is, and I can assure you all, he is old enough to wear the uniform. And so the picture is approximately a little over a year old, but this is one of the campaigns that we've joined in to promote Smithfield Police Department to the community, and we will be giving out these calendars at the National Night Out event. We'll be giving them out there, and also the officers will be distributing them for the next calendar year. So we're happy to participate. And year-to-date, I think from this project, I think the town has received approximately $1,500 in return for this event. Also in your packet today, you all should have received a speed survey. That speed survey is going to be from the Grace Street. That speed survey was conducted from September the 13th at 4 o'clock p.m. to September the 20th at 4 o'clock p.m. In that speed survey, over 14,000 vehicles were checked. That is a designated speed area of 25, and the enforceable violations come to 1%, which is a very low rating. The 85th percentile indicates that the average speed was 29 miles per hour. So this is hot off the press, so I just got this evening, so I wanted to include it in
your
your
emails.
packet. I've also taken the opportunity to go back and look at some of the previous speed surveys, and this one is from September the 4th of 2020 through September the 11th, and that's where 11,000 vehicles were checked low for enforceable violations. January the 5th, 2021 through January the 11th, 2021, again, 11,000 vehicles checked. Once again, the enforceable violations was 1% being low. February 2nd of 2022 to February 12th, 19,000 vehicles checked. The 85th percentile, once again, was 29 being low, and so on and so forth. So the reason I share that is because our speed analysis has indicated to us that it may be a volume issue, but we are not seeing a speeding issue. So we just wanted to present that to council. Also, in the form of Carey Street, we have reached out to VDOT for any updates concerning the speed analysis on Carey Street, and thus far we have not received anything back from VDOT. I think one of the last emails that they said they was going to reach out to the town manager, but the town manager has yet to hear anything from VDOT. So don't know where we are or how we can expedite that any sooner with the contacts that we have.
Thank you, Chief. Councilman Pack.
Go ahead, Ms. Butler.
You said in 2022, the traffic was 19,000?
Yes, ma'am.
This year it's dropped to 14,000? Do you know what attributed to that?
It was during that time frame. This was a 10-day survey, so there may be a difference in the volume of traffic from a 7-day, 5-day, or a 10-day.
Okay, and one other question. Do we have any updates on the homicide that occurred?
We are currently still working that investigation very vigorously, and thus far, nothing concrete.
Okay.
Chief, if I may, a
Yes,
couple
sir.
of questions on the speed survey. During some of the hearings on Pierceville, your speed survey was brought up, and one of the points that one of the speakers brought was that the location of the survey did not allow for either acceleration or deceleration, that the location was too close to a spot where they would not be traveling at speed. This is in the 300 block of Grace Street, according to the analysis we got. Is that sufficient time for cars to either get to speed or decelerate? I mean, I'm trying to see if there's any validity to the argument.
Where we have to, with the instructions of placing the device that we use, the 300 block is adequate for us to post, the J-mark. And yes, a vehicle would have time to get up to that speed, to get up to 25 or miles per hour or greater.
So 300, I used to live on 321, so that's roughly the middle of Grace Street.
Yes, sir.
I have to say, okay. Do you have, when we do these, does the motorist recognize, like, you'll see the speed limit is 25, so it's not a monitored where they might potentially recognize they're being clocked for speed?
No, sir. That's why we use this particular device.
It's a small black box that's fairly easy to miss if you're not looking for it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
Mr. Pack, I used to run radar on that one specific piece of highway due to some issues and complaints. And I would sit right in front of the fire department and run radar. And I can assure you, right through there is more than adequate for them to get up to speed, either coming or going. Because I have written some through there that have been in the 50, 60 mile an hour range through there.
Sure.
Very few, but when they do, they believe me, they can make it up to that, up to whatever speed they choose to in that one specific area. And that's probably the optimal place to have that device.
Sure. I don't want to discredit any of our citizens that live there, because I'm sure that when you live there and you feel the speed is too high, you feel that. Our information suggests that, well, I don't know, I guess if I live there and there's 100 total enforceable violations over a week period, that may seem like a lot to me too. I mean, the data says we don't need to do anything, but if I live there, and that's one of the reasons I don't live there anymore. I was raising kids; it was too close to the road for me. But that, I don't know. 100. I'm just trying to understand the concerns versus the data. And
I can maybe help a little bit more with that too. As a former state trooper, I've run radar many hours. Gosh, only knows how many hours. What happens is a lot of folks perceive that the speed is excessive in two specific scenarios. If you get a narrow roadway, it seems as if the vehicle from an optical perspective is going faster, or if it's in a curve, it will perceive, or it will appear that the vehicle is traveling faster than it actually is. It just, I don't know why, but that's just one of the optical illusions, for lack of a better way of putting it, that shows, or appears to be what it is. Chief, is that?
That is correct. I can assure you all that with numbers like this, we are still patrolling the area. However, we are not doing a directed patrol because of based off of this. With this JMAR, the box that we use to do the speed analysis, based off of complaints, we just took it down off of Gray Street. We're going to move it to another area where we've gotten complaints. It's going to be there for an extended period of time based off the length of the road. Just so that we can check it in multiple areas to verify, to confirm or deny whether or not there's a speeding issue. And from there, it'll go to the third place that we've gotten complaints. We only have one of these boxes with this technology. One of the things that we have done in the past, we've utilized this box followed by the speed sign where that would do the flashing light to let motorists know what their speeds are. And if you're speeding, it would flash a blue light. That was one of the things that was the second phase that we would do to educate the general public. And then we would take the enforcement action. On Cary Street, because we have not done anything on Cary Street because of the fact we're waiting for VDOT to do their analysis, and we did not want to take any type of speed enforcement action to skew those numbers. We're trying to get correct data from VDOT, so we're trying not to skew those numbers.
And for your total enforceable violations was 100. What makes it an enforceable violation?
Enforceable?
Yes, sir.
We normally start writing above 10 miles per hour.
Okay. So we had 100 that would be 35 miles an hour or
Yes, sir.
greater. Okay.
Brandon, I guess with the volume of cars too, that could kind of give an optical illusion about traffic speeding.
Your sidewalks are close. It's a
Yeah.
narrow road.
Especially if you live there.
Especially if you live there. I understand it.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Chairman, Randy, if you're looking at your old house,
Yeah.
the light pole just to the left at the other house is where that little box
Okay.
is. So it's right in front of my driveway.
Yeah.
And I always thought that they were just spying on me.
It wouldn't turn the right way.
You figured us out.
You're not that interested, Jeff.
God
Sorry.
only knows what they saw. But, to your point though, the question is, so I'm always slowing down to come in my driveway. I've got this gate that was built in 1900, and I've got that big old wide Jeep, and I've got to go real slow. So it's seeing me come into there. That may skew the numbers. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be a naysayer, but, and then when I back out, I got to stop, I got to watch, and then get on out. But it is a legitimate concern. But I'm not gonna, even though I live on Gray Street, you've never heard me complain about speeding on Gray Street because I've got a sub-army of people that do enough of that. So they're gonna take care of it. But, Chief, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Weather permitting, where is National Night Out gonna be? Not weather permitting, where's it gonna be?
All right, weather permitting, it's gonna be at the Luda Sports Complex.
Yep,
Not weather permitting, it's gonna be at Main Street Mission Center.
got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any
Chief,
other
just,
questions?
if I could, just
Please.
as a matter of full disclosure, you know I support the police department
Yes, sir.
without a doubt. I will be out of town, out of state, actually, that week, so I just wanted to give you a heads up that all my support will be there with you, but this is one of those family matters that I dare not abrogate, so anyway, I just want to let you know.
Yes, sir. And, Mr. Mayor, I also have a resolution for you to sign. If you're not gonna be there, sir, normally this resolution is read during National Night Out. If you could have a designee to read said document.
Vice Mayor Butler, will you be there for National Night Out?
I wanted to hear what you said before. You're gonna not be here
I will
that
not be
week or
there. I
that
will be
night?
out of state that week.
That week?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I'll be glad to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll get
The
this.
only- Well, I'll say better part of the week. I have to come back for the council meeting, but up until then, I will be coming back the next.
That's what I wanted to
Yes.
confirm. Okay, thanks.
I'll get this so you can get it signed.
Sounds good.
Along
Chairman
those
Hall.
same lines, Chief,
Yes, sir.
I will not be there. I am here tonight because I felt it very important to be here, but my activity is limited. Over there, it would not be limited, so I'm going to err to the side of caution.
Fully understand, sir. And to let you all know, I have asked for a photographer and a videographer so that we can capture this moment or this event, and we can just have it to put it on our social media and other platforms.
It'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Hall?
You have anything?
I do.
Okay.
Chief, would it be possible, I heard you rattle off some statistics of the various traffic studies that have been done over the last few years. I guess I'd say over the last 2-3 years, I think you quoted. Being that we just got this one this afternoon on email, and I don't write as fast as you talk.
I'm sorry.
Would it, it's fine. Would it be possible for someone to put that in a grid, right? And have an average per day? Because as you said, you know, we hear one that says, oh, 19,000. Okay, but that was a 10-day study, right? So how many per day is that? And this was a 7-day study. Does that make sense? Just to
Yes.
normalize the data?
Okay.
So that we can appropriately
And
react to
if I
it.
could ask for a little add to that, do we know when the packing plant closed the other facility, as far as talking about skewing numbers, as far as the number in traffic or whatever, the number of vehicles traveling down there? You've got a speed study, I'm sure, that goes back when the original, or the other plant was open.
Okay.
I'd like to, if we could, just kind of add that to it, just a little asterisk as to when operations ceased over there, so that we can get a real check as far as, you know, what kind of traffic is going down that highway now versus 10 years ago, or something like that, wherever your other surveys go, if you would, Chief. If
Okay.
if you please, Ms. Roundtree, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. I have one other question.
Yes.
Chief Howell, as far as FTE goes, your total number and total open?
Yes, ma'am. We are currently at 19 sworn police officers. We have 4 vacancies. Currently, we have 3 people in various segments of the background investigation. And we have numerous applications still coming in. Some are certified law enforcement officers and some are not. So we will be, right now, we're looking at conducting interviews on October the 11th for all those applications that we have received since that time. So currently, what we'll be looking for, if those 3 work out, and we hopefully believe that they will, we'll be looking to fill 1 vacancy.
So that sounds pretty positive to me. So as a follow-up, on a scale of 0 to 10, right? 0 being the pits and 10 being great, how do you feel about your ability to recruit and the kind of prospect at this point?
I would say 9.7.
Really? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Any other
Thank you.
questions of the Chief? Thank you, Chief Hal.
Thank you.
All right, I will now close public safety and turn it over to water and sewer.
Water and Sewer, Chairman Smith, members Pack and Hall. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have operation updates from Jack Reed.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Happy to report there were no major damage from the storm. We've got to keep an eye on the next storm, Felipe. The site support water main is in. We'll begin the services to the homes soon, probably this week. This is another ARPA project that'll soon be completed. And the 16-inch main from Mallory Point may begin construction this week, beginning with the bores over Battery Park Road at Wellington Estates and over towards Battery Park Tank. They're waiting on Miss Utility tickets to clear. If they clear this week, that construction will begin. The overall project should take approximately 3 months.
Any questions for Jack?
Mr. Reed, will that cause any traffic blockages or issues?
Yes, ma'am. There will be one-lane traffic depending on where they're at and where they're working. Most of the work is in the right-of-way. A lot of it is going to be kind of tight to the bike trail. We may not have to close a lane at that point, but some of the other areas will require lane closures.
And you expect that for how long?
3 months, give or take.
Michael, do we notify the citizens of that kind of disruption?
When we know that it's gonna happen, we will put it out, and they should be able to provide us with
That aspect is still some weeks or even maybe a month out. The bores, there won't be any traffic interruptions when they're doing the bores, and that'll take a few weeks.
And so then I also wonder about just coordination of these things, right? Because like on the way from Smithfield to our farm, there's a bridge they're redoing, right? It's closed, you know, which one I'm talking about. It's closed for a year, that road, and you go around. And so then I'm going around last night to go burn some boxes, and they're redoing the paving on 258, right? So it's really no good way to get out in the county right now, especially at night. And so, I mean, do we take a look at other projects that are going on and other ways that people would go around and get through this area to make sure that we're not messing with people both ways or all three ways or whatever? I just ask you to consider that and talk to VDOT about the prospect of a disruption and what it means for other projects. That's my question, just to coordinate.
Any other questions for Jack? Thank you, Jack. Appreciate what you do. With nothing else on the agenda, I'll close the water and sewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will now open the Finance Committee with Chairman Pack, members Vice Mayor Butler, and Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to go ahead and start off today with August financial statements. Ms. Ross?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. As you have in front of you, the financial statements for the month of August. Do I need that microphone? Yes. Thank you. All right, we're just going to briefly talk about a couple of points. We're making final adjustments to the June 2023 financial statements after the auditors give us the adjusting entries. They were on site this past week. They stayed Tuesday through Friday. And if you'll note on there, I noted that the footnotes to the financial statements will be added after the first quarter. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk about a couple of important parts of this. The real estate and personal property taxes are normal for this time of the year. We have billed the real estate at approximately $1.1 million. $144,000 of that is for the refuse. Local taxes, except for cigarette taxes, are all below about 33%. Given so many of the July and August revenues are accrued, we're going to make those adjustments. Permits, fees, and licensing are running higher than normal because of revenue received from Napolitano Homes in the amount of $57,000 for the inspection of Mallory Point subdivision. Let's see. Miscellaneous is trending a little bit lower than last year. Revenue from the Commonwealth PPTRA is already been received for the full year. That's $240,000. Let's see. Federal funds have been received from Bulletproof Vest Grant in the amount of $3,762. Excuse me. Salaries and wages will be adjusted due to accruals back to June. Let's see, the property and casualty insurance has been paid for the first quarter. Let's see, capital. $8,836 has been paid towards the town's website redesign, and $24,000 for center restroom renovations. There was a truck that was purchased, an F-250, and that was to be split between Public Works, Water, and Sewer. That was approximately $60,000. There was also some funds spent for Cypress Creek lighting, LED lighting, and that was about $37,000. Let's see. Utilities, water and sewer charges, as well as sewer compliance and debt service will be adjusted due to the amount accrued. So I also want to talk a little bit about the B&B, Airbnb. I've done tracking with a little bit of that. I looked at all of the receipts that we got from them back to January. There's one of them that's really good and sends it what the property is associated with, which is really nice. But the rest of them, for example, I talked about the Airbnb. There's another one, Expedia, really doesn't tell us a lot. We're talking since January about $4,435. I was speaking with the Commissioner of the Revenue for Suffolk as well as Isle of Wight, and there's a conference that they're going to this week, and they're going to talk about that. There's got to be a better way to track what's coming in, not just get a receipt from Airbnb or Expedia just saying this is how much you get, be able to track it back to which house it was. For example, Hopper told me the exact address and how much they receive for that. They do tell us what the room receipts, but they, again, don't tell us which property it's for. So, the financial statements.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Ross on financial statements?
Ms. Ross, does the amount that you got from Expedia and kind of when you went digging, did that confirm your suspicions or bring more questions or?
Yeah, I was talking with the Commissioner of the Revenue for Isle of Wight. He said, you know, we can need to come up with a form that we give to the folks that own these Airbnb and have them complete it, and then we'll go back and track what it was. Of course, we're relying on them to be honest and tell us what the receipts were for the year, for the month, because we get this monthly.
Other localities have a form. I've found it online.
The Expedias of the world and the third-party travel sites are not necessarily just Airbnbs either. They're going to be all your hotel occupancy, and that number is relatively low. But then, from my hotel standpoint, I understand that we don't get much from the third-party websites. We don't. They're expensive, so we choose not to advertise on them. So, what you're seeing from Expedia likely is not from the VRBO style property. What you should see is that from either VRBO, HomeAway, or Airbnb. Those are your three main sites where you, because if you try and do Expedia, you're going to look at all the hotels in town that are on third-party sites, and all of them are. So you have the Hampton Inn, you have Smithfield, you have the Smithfield Inn. So you have a number of those on there, and yeah, that's very difficult to tell you. If you want to know what my portion is, I can break it out for you. I'd be happy to tell you that. I can't tell you what anybody else is. I don't know, but I can tell you what ours is.
Good.
So.
I set up an alert on my phone, so anytime a Airbnb pops up in the Smithfield area, I see it and I go look at it. Yeah.
Ms. Ross, I also had a question about kayak rentals. In August for the financial statement, it said there was no receipts for kayak rental.
No.
Maybe Amy needs to help with this one, but I just wondered how that program was going.
Payment yet
Yeah.
for the new rental system that we're using.
So is that like a net 45 or?
I'm not sure. I'll get the terms clarified.
Okay, thank you.
I've had some comments from people on the trail that love the new system.
I didn't know what you were gonna say next.
Glad to hear that too. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them out because they're different color than the other ones, right? So I see a lot of those out, and I see them out times I did not see them out previously, which is great. Do you have enough? Like, are your peak times getting sold out too often, or because we talked about doing 4 to start with, and then maybe 4 later, and we're totally off the topic of financial statements, but since we opened this.
I think there may be enough for everyday inventory. It's those larger groups that want to come with 6 people. They're like, that's not enough. But there's not a lot of those, and we're thinking about addressing them through our
Inventory.
our kayak inventory next summer. But I got to get to a place where I can manage that, have staff, dedicated to that. So not yet. I think that we can solve it through our own inventory.
All right, since I took us off topic, I'll try and bring us back on. Ms. Ross, cash balances, please.
Yes. So, total all funds is let's see, 23,773,000. That's down about 1.2 because our expenditures were up a little bit last month. A couple of things I want to talk about is if you'll notice that very last line that says VIP investment pool. We have been investing in the fund called VIP 1-3 year high quality bond. Our rates aren't that great with that, and it's still with VIP. I'd like to suggest moving the amount that is in there of $539,000 into the same pool that they have called VIP Stable NAV Liquidity Pool. It's run about 5.6%. So we should be able to do that without any difficulty. You just switch it from one fund to another, but I wanted to have approval for that. A couple of other things. Our fees for banking services will be going up because we had to add additional products. Positive Pay, ACH transactions, we're trying to get towards that. So our fees for our banking services will be up as much as $3,000 a month, $3,000. We could leave $8 million in the account to offset all of our fees. So we have right now, when I look at all the balances and ones that we could move things, and this is just in the main account, we could leave $8 million in the account, put $2 million into a CD at the same bank for 3 months, and that would pay us right about 5.2%. So those are just my suggestions to keep everything at the bank until we can see how it's doing.
Okay.
When you say, right,
Go ahead.
when she says at the bank, I'm sorry.
At
is
Town
that-
Bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a relationship with Town and Farmers, and then they merged, and right now we only have one at Town, and we're getting ready to do a banking RFP, so. All right, so let's go back through those three ideas there. So the first was a VIP investment pool. You wanted to change our funds from the fund we're currently in to a different fund.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there any consideration or concern with this recommendation? Okay.
I don't have any concern, but I wondered what Ms. Rogers thought.
About moving the funds?
I mean, it's an investment fund for retirement, right?
Oh.
No, it's not. It's not structured for retirement.
Oh, it's not the retirement? Okay, never
No.
mind then.
We don't manage our retirement funds. Are you awake? Are you awake?
I'm sorry, I thought that was the pooled retirement fund.
No.
So what is the VIP fund exactly?
It's a state-run investment pool. It's Virginia Investment Pool is what it stands for. And we put $500,000 in it as our excess capital a number of years ago, quite a few years ago. Obviously, it hasn't grown very much. It's at $39,000. And what Ms. Ross is suggesting is that we move something that we hope to grow a little bit better.
Right, it's run by BML and Banco.
Oh, okay. But it's not the retirement, you're off the hook.
Okay, so we'll send this as a recommendation to council for our consent agenda. And the second two items you had, Ms. Ross, were to leave in a minimum $8 million balance in which fund did you want to leave that in?
The main fund.
The general fund?
The general fund, sorry, yes.
Okay,
And then,
and that would allow us, that would then waive all of our service fees, savings of $3,000 a month, give or take $36,000 a year, okay? And to also purchase a $2 million CD at the 5.2% rate, you said?
yep, 5.2%.
5.2%, yes.
We hope.
All right. Any questions or concerns on those? No? Yes.
I don't have any concerns. I do have a question. I think early on, we talked about the cash management or the purchase card or whatever. Do we use that internally? Because it depends on what our annual spend is, that we may have the opportunity to get a rebate back at the end of the year. And it would be coordinated with our, I guess, account payable system. And I was just wondering, well, I just read an article recently in the paper where the city of Newport News, their city council members had key cards that they were using. But I would think that in our department, that some of our staff may use a purchase card for the town. Because it would be to our advantage if we could get a rebate back at the end of the year instead of writing checks for everything.
Right. And I understand that some of the banks do that. You can use it as a, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It has a zero balance in it, but you can just use it to pay, and you just allot that much money. So we'll look into that.
I mean, we do use P cards. It is through the Bank of America, and we do get rebates. I don't remember I don't know how much the rebate has been, so we can get that number for you, but we are actively using.
So we use that through Bank of America? Okay.
So we don't just have one bank?
We have a purchase card with Bank of America, credit card.
Right, so it's like credit cards.
And then
We
they
pay-
transfer that rebate into town bank?
We would get that rebate. I'd have to check whether it's an ACH into our bank account or whether they physically mail us a check. I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out. I do know that we have received the rebates each year that we've had it.
But there is a purchasing card product where you can use it as an accounts payable.
As accounts payable too?
Yes, ma'am.
Which would be to our advantage to use the purchase card as well as the account payable system, because the more we spend, the more rebate we get back.
Yes, ma'am, very much. More secure too.
Okay,
Somewhat, anyway.
so what we want to do here is move the minimum $8 million account balance and the $2 million CD to council for consideration on the consent agenda as well, please. Okay, next up, we have a review of our draft investment policy. Again, Ms. Ross.
Thank you. I also attached, I hope you all have a copy of that, the old policy. Made some major revisions to it. Tried to include the codes of Virginia that would apply to it. There were not a lot of code changes, just a few of them. I wanted to include a couple of things that we had not looked at before, and there were some of the investments that had done before. We had not included any state non-arbitrage pool if we ever release bonds, sell bonds for any capital improvement projects that will be longer-term bonds. I wanted to put that in there so that we can include where that would go, should we have that done. And some of the things we have not used, but I included, but were in our policy before. There was also, let's see, I'm going to tell you which page it's on. We talked about the investment brokers and dealers. Should we decide to go outside and have the investment brokers or dealers maintain any of our funds, we need to have forms filled out for that. There's also, when we have any of the banks, depository fee and service banks, that's on page 13. If you'll note down in the second section, banks must be qualified public depositories. I was at a conference last Tuesday with the Treasurers Association of Virginia. They're saying that all the municipalities must go in and check to see if their banks that they use are qualified public depositories. Nobody really knew about that until last week, and everybody was a little bit surprised, but we'll start doing that. They gave us the link to try to do that. So no major changes, just codes and a couple of additions and clarifications.
Question. Do we have to approach them and get a certification letter or whatever to keep it on file for the auditors, or how does that work?
We have not had that. We do have to have, the only letter we have to send to the banks are ones that verify what our deposits are.
Right.
The totals, but we don't have to from the banks.
Yeah, I just
I'm
didn't
sorry,
want
from
the
bank's
auditor to come in and you not have that one specific piece of paper that's required under code and we get dinged for it. Okay.
They may add that since they added that qualification that we have to check it from month to month.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know.
Okay, any questions or concerns on those draft investment policies? Good, I've read it, she's right, there's not a whole lot of change or in here. If there are no concerns, we'll also send this to council for consideration. We can put this on the consent agenda too, please, Leslie. All right, Town Code Amendment Section 272, Rules of Procedure, Mr. Michael Stallings.
All right. Yes, sir. This was just a place for discussion. There had been some discussion about changing the Robert's Rules of Order, but with some slight modifications to that. So this is a place for council to discuss that so we know which direction to move forward when we go to make that change. I think the main point was, voting capacity of the mayor.
Now, if I may.
Yeah, please.
It also indicates that the mayor shall have limited debate as far as discussions are concerned. I'd rather have our legal counsel here. I know we need to be moving along, but we're not quite there yet, I don't think, where Delegate Brewer has to have it right now for pre-filing.
This one is fine since it's just in town code, so you
Oh,
have
the
as
town
much
code.
time as you
Okay.
need on this.
Okay.
So we can bring it back to October committees.
I think that'd be
Okay.
fine, give us more
We'll
time
defer
to
to them.
focus
Yes,
on
sir.
that.
Yeah,
Yep.
my thoughts on that are two, and, I guess I'm not versed enough to know what Robert's Rules of Orders are versus the House Delegate Rules of Order, but there's two things. One, and to your mention, Mr. Mayor, we should have unlimited debate. We should be able to talk the subject to death if that's what we choose to do. Probably not the best thing to do as far as time goes, but I don't think that we should limit discussion on any item that comes before this council. I can't see a situation where that's a super idea. The second one is that we've exercised twice this year substitute motions, and I understand that's within our ordinance, and I'm not debating that at all, but I don't like a substitute motion. I don't think it's fair. I think that we should vote on the motion on the floor, and if it fails, another one can come in front of it, and we've seen it used, twice this year, and I'd like for, as we set these up, is not to allow for substitute motions in our ordinances. I just vote for the motion that's on the floor. If it fails, we'll put another one up, or we don't. But, to hijack any one person's motion to either for or against with your own, and then you have to vote on that one, that's a slippery slope to me. I don't believe that to be the most positive way to work in a democracy, because it supersedes. So, I know we're not doing this today, but as we discuss these items, I'd very much like us to consider that, if that's something we can even consider. Our attorney may say, well, you either accept all the rules or none of them, and that may be where we are, but substitute motions, certainly not my favorite thing. So that's really all I have to add on that.
Chairman, I'd like to
Yeah,
chime in
please.
as well. I totally agree with you. It really is disturbing that somebody brings a motion and then the substitute motion trumps the original one. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's vote on the original motion, pass or fail, and if something else needs to come up, then we'll discuss that. But I totally agree with you, and it's been bothering me for a couple months now, because we have used it twice in a span of, 3 months? And we've never used it before.
Right.
And I just see that, slippery slope, now we're setting a trend. So, if I don't like what you bring up, then I'm gonna substitute it, and then now I get to trump you.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and I'd really like to look into that and figure out where we can take it.
A motion that's made and properly seconded on the floor deserves a vote. You can discuss it, we can continue to discuss it, but it deserves a vote, in my opinion.
Randy, I think
So-
I agree with you too. But when I asked Delegate Brewer about it, you probably speak, Steve, to how this goes at the state level. She said they're used all the time. Substitute motions all the time on the House floor are used, so like it or not. And then also both the rules of, the Jefferson's rules, as well as, first of all, she was pretty surprised when I called her to ask her about it, that we still are governed by those rules. But she did say that with regard to substitute motions, it's really the same fate for Robert's Rules of Order as well as the original House of Delegates rules. Both say the same thing about substitute motions. So that's just all I know about that topic, but I was looking for Mayor Bowman's.
Well, having watched it many, many times, at the end of the day, if someone poses a substitute motion, they have to get a second.
Right.
Okay? And if they get a second and they get a vote, if you're still predisposed or inclined to vote the opposite way, the substitute's going to fail. What that does, though, is what it's intended to do, I think, is trigger debate. When we're talking about debating and debating and debating, it also gives the other side a chance to at least be heard on the floor from a procedural perspective. Now, I know we've had, if you make the initial motion, you can still debate it, but that's kind of where it is. The other thing a lot of folks don't realize that, there's some procedural maneuvers. For example, if you make a motion and even if I don't like it, I end up voting for it. You can still ask for a reconsideration. I may hate your motion, but I can ask for a reconsideration. If I voted in favor of the majority, I can go back and flip it and use that rule as well. So there's a number of debating maneuvers that you can use, but that's just the way it's been. And I guess you could strike it out of there if you want to strike it out. And, but that's the way things, that's how sausage is made up there, is what they would say, but anyway.
With all due respect,
Yeah,
those are things I don't like about government.
well, I get it, I get it.
It's not supposed to
But
be.
here's the deal.
Sneak.
The other
I don't
thing
want
is-
Valerie to try and sneak
here's-
something in, and she don't want me to try and sneak something. I just,
Well,
let's
but-
debate
but-
and be honest with it.
But back to your point, you start, let's just say that we start, I'm chairing the meeting, okay? And I get 2 words out of my mouth, and a motion is made. Motion's made right then. I have to rule on that motion and allow that before we've had any debate. Doesn't give you a chance to make a substitute motion, then we debate it. So if you go to that, I mean, there are pros and cons on both of them as far as what you do. So a lot of the times it's he who speaks the fastest and hits the button first, hopefully can garner the momentum to ensure that their motion passes without others having an opportunity to have extensive debate as well. It cuts both ways.
Yeah.
And it really, it doesn't, again, forever and ever, obviously, to Bill's, give him credit, he said he'd never seen or heard, I've seen it so many times that it just goes back and forth. That's why I was so quick to respond, that I know that that's the way it went, but didn't argue the point. But, the other thing is, going back, if I can, while we're talking about it, the Robert's rules is very clear about the chair voting. That gives the chair, that allows the mayor that y'all have selected to, I would think, be somewhat in a leadership position, to cover, just to not say anything ever anymore and just kind of hang out and, y'all vote on it, away you go. And the only time I ever vote's when it's a tie vote. So there's good and bad and all of them, but I don't feel very strong. The substitute motion aspect of it, I've dealt with it all my life. I've seen how it works, but at the same time, it doesn't bother me one way or the other if you do away with it or whatever. But just, I think I'd like to go back and study just a little bit more as to how the substitute and what it does. I mean, it's on page 43, I think, in my book in there. There's got to be some rationale behind it that, and we don't have to do anything right now, I don't guess, but I'd like to look at it for a little bit longer and see what the real deal, because if they've been doing it, and again, why you don't like, it doesn't seem fair. It really does not seem fair. I agree with that, but.
But it's legal.
Oh, it's very.
Well, my question to comment that you made, in the Robert's Rules of Order or the House of Delegates order, does it make a difference whether or not the mayor is elected or appointed? Because I would think that in an elected position.
No, it basically is regardless. It's regardless because, the chairperson is supposed to, if you read Robert's Rules of Order, I'm supposed to really sit here and not have much input whatsoever. That's what it says in the book. I'm supposed to maintain a balanced approach or an unbiased approach to what goes on around me.
Okay.
And that doesn't make sense to me.
Is it Robert's Rules of Order?
Yeah, but Ms. Butler, to your point, the mayor's equal to us as far as he's been elected by the people, the same as us, and we've appointed him to be our mayor for 2 years at a time.
And that's what the charter says.
Yeah.
The charter says specifically that the mayor is no more than a council member with other specific things that we're removing, like running the police department. That's like I want to do right now, but anyway, so.
Well, my point is that the mayor should debate and share their opinion and have conversation and have an equal vote to the other 7 members.
Well, and that's why I
Yeah,
asked that.
I thought that's what you meant.
I thought it depended upon whether or not.
It does not. It
If
says.
the position is elected, that position kind of sets apart.
It would change my mind if he were elected,
Under
I think.
Roberts, it says the chair.
Yeah.
It doesn't say elected, it doesn't say appointed, it says the chair.
Okay, I'll go back and check that.
All good points.
Probably ought to buy, honestly.
That was my intent, was.
Renee's probably, I think Renee got a copy of it. I've got a copy, so.
Copies of it for everybody, and what we'll do is it'll be on the committee meetings in October, And we'll try to pull any relevant sections that deal with these topics so that they can be in front of you to discuss.
I'd suggest you get the handbook that you can get, which is a short one, but buy a big one, because the handbook references the large book in a number of different locations. That way we're certain.
I'd like to recommend that it be present at our meetings too, so if we have
Yes.
any questions, we can refer back.
Normally, council is the parliamentarian for meetings. So, something else he needs to be dealing with.
Bring in
That's
his
the way- That's
briefcase.
the way it normally is. You refer to council. The chair is not supposed to be in a position necessarily to be parliamentarian.
that's what he's here
That's why you got lawyers at every meeting, but anyway. Michael, you gotta get going here shortly, don't you?
10 minutes.
All right, any other questions for town code amendments? No, we'll bring that back next month. We have 3 invoices in excess of $20,000, requiring authorization to Lewis Construction for the work done over on Sykes Court we just heard about, to Goodrich and Sons on Pagan Road, I believe this is for tree removal, and then to Xylem for Bradford Muse Pump Station. Any questions or concerns on these invoices? Hearing none, let's send these to council for consideration.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If that's all that you have as far as finance is concerned, I do have an issue.
I have one other item to bring up. Sure. And it doesn't really fit under finance. It's probably should have been done under public safety, and Mr. Hall, I'm sorry for not bringing it up during that time. The president of the rescue squad was before us last month, and made the suggestion that during the Church Street bridge, the South Church Street Bridge renovation, that traffic does a one-way pattern from Michael's office towards downtown for the continuum of the project. And that made an awful lot of sense to me for time of response. It was 12 minutes what Brian suggested that it increase would be, and you can't tell somebody that they got an extra 12 minutes sometimes. So I asked, and from a business standpoint on my end, I was very much in favor of to keep traffic flowing. That's what traffic circles do, that's what you try and do. So the folks could still come into downtown. Most of our folks come into downtown from the Hampton Roads area as opposed from the Windsor side. So that would allow folks to continue to find us in downtown Smithfield, and we would just have to reroute them back home around the bypass. I asked Judy to kind of informally poll the others downtown. I've informally polled some of the shop owners in my business. We are all in favor of this, and not just a little bit, like overwhelmingly, like, man, I wish we thought of this beforehand. This makes a really good time. I also believe that during the initial bridge project, when they were looking at it, VDOT recommended that we don't have alternating traffic with a stoplight because we backed up forever and it'd be difficult to pass through, but we decided we wanted it anyhow. So anyhow, what I'm hoping to do is garner support of this council to instruct our staff to try and get VDOT to go from the alternating traffic stoplight to a continuous one-way traffic into downtown for the continuum of the product, regardless of what side of the bridge you're working on.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir, please.
Does that mean coming from South Church Street, Route 10 to South Church Street this way?
Yes, sir.
And not off of Main Street?
Correct. It would be,
I would agree with that. Of course, I'm an EVOC operator as well with the rescue squads.
yes.
Yes, we have more trouble getting downtown than we do getting out of town.
And to that point, we did reach out to VDOT and ask about starting that conversation, and I have followed up, and I have not received a response, which is kind of unusual for the gentleman I'm dealing with, so I don't know if he's trying to find the right person, but we have reached out to ask about starting that conversation, just haven't heard back from them yet.
I'll tell you what worries me, I think, as far as VDOT's concerned, VDOT's got this book called the Uniform Manual of Traffic Control Devices. And I wonder if this is a variance from their established procedure, which is not allowed under their governance. That being said, I don't have a problem with asking. Matter of fact, if you want to draft a letter, I'll be glad to send them and ask them where their response is. At least we can get a response one way or the
I
other.
believe this was their suggestion to start off with at the beginning of the
their
project.
suggestion?
VDOT's.
There you go.
That's
Deal.
kind of what memory serves.
Okay.
And we said, no, we need a traffic light to get everybody in and out.
Now, those traffic lights, I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with them. I remember as a kid, they had one on Route 10. And
They had one right here.
they're dangerous. They cause people to do things that they are not supposed to be doing. After a while, they start gaming the system where they start figuring, okay, I know it's got a 30-second delay or a 45-second delay where both sides are red at the same time. and they go and they start running red lights, and you got more trouble to deal with, and then you end up with collisions. I mean, they are really, they're a solution, but there's a lot of other stuff that
Sure.
goes with it for sure. I've seen it happen.
Well-
I think Ms. Winslow had a comment or something.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't even see you there.
They, originally VDOT said, they wanted it to flow one way. They didn't specify which way, but I think we could certainly specify which way.
Yeah.
We'll keep beating that.
Yeah.
If we need to send something higher to the top of the food chain and let it work its way down.
Be glad to.
Business is good, but we had that accident in front of the station this summer at some point, and it was 12 minutes to get, additional minutes to get a rescue services to those that were injured. And, you know, if I have a customer choking or having a heart attack or anybody along South Church Street is in the same situation, that's, yeah. You can't tell somebody to hang tight, it's gonna be another 12 minutes above and beyond. Let me know when you're having a heart attack ahead of time.
Can they
It
not
doesn't work that
respond
way.
from the station on Great Springs?
Well, they do respond from Great Springs, but if traffic's backed up, because you can't get down South Church Street, because you got backup of traffic sitting in the light, and you have cars coming at you, so they can't get to you. If you had it from responding from Great Springs, you would get on the bypass at Cypress Creek and come around, and you have continual flow in. It may be a little bit longer, but it's not gonna be 12 minutes longer.
But they can get on Great Springs onto Route 10,
Right.
going east, which will navigate around the way
Correct.
we want the traffic to go.
And same for fire or police.
Right.
So, okay. That is all I have for finance. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
In speaking with both Mr. Stallings, and I'll let him come in, and then other council members, but in speaking with Mr. Riddick, we have not yet set, by virtue of the procedural debate that we had as far as a hearing for the tax rate for the upcoming year. Mr. Stallings, you want to?
Right, and the direction that the attorney needs to be able to draft the public notice that goes in the newspaper is the rate, to make sure that we advertise the rate that council intends to implement. Just because I've heard some rumblings of a desire for discussion on that, and if there is, then that needs to be discussed before that advertisement goes in the newspaper. And I think that's the reason he has probably held off on putting that ad in the paper.
And I think there is some discussion.
Okay, so,
I have something.
please. Smith.
I guess I used the trump card twice, so we'll see if I can't use it again.
You tried to use it one time. We never heard of such a thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
anyway, that comes back to when we did settle about how we voted on that particular thing on the budget, but I'm still in favor of not using the ARPA funds, because I feel like it's a Band-Aid for this year, and then we'll face them with it next year. I don't think the 14 cents is gonna get us through this year. I had once started at 17, I was trying to get to 15, I couldn't quite get that night, just because substitute motion hadn't been used in 30 years, so.
I tried.
Yeah, you did, and I appreciate that. So I would like for us to reconsider and look at some numbers, whatever we have to do, and get this worked out, because we have to put it up for advertisement. And want to make sure we have time for that. But I would like to see us go to the 17 cents, take the ARPA funds, remove them from the original budget, put them back in the ARPA funds, and then this is going to help us get through this year. And whatever happens next year, at least we won't be behind the 8 ball again. We've put this thing off for years. I've been on here 11 years now, and it seems like we've always tried to not raise it, but then we're in the hole all the time. We have been facing the needs for our employees to have better salaries. We've achieved that. And I think that helped in their morale and in their home lives. I think we need to step up to the plate, and everybody is responsible for this, every citizen, not just us, to make sure we live in a better community. So that's my take on it. I'd like to start off at the 17 and remove the ARPA funds and put them back in.
I'll rebuttal a little bit of what you said, and I'll just give you my thought process on this. Employee salaries. We went up to the full raise
6.2.
6.2, right?
I was happy about
So,
that.
so that was in the 14-cent budget. The only thing that and if we were using the ARPA funds as continual, if we're using that for salaries or something along those lines, absolutely, that's not a sustainable practice. When I sat down and did the numbers, and it's been a minute since I did this, the ARPA funds were only there for some capital improvements that we used for some of the town buildings. It was $450-ish thousand, as I recall. And this is a one-time use. And when you go back and you look at the trend on these capital improvements, what we budget and what we budgeted this year, there's a grave difference. We rarely budget that much for that. And we've also been using ARPA funds throughout the last couple of years to do other capital projects. So in fact, we talked about one earlier today where we used ARPA funds for it. I also understand the need to look into the future. But I think if we can balance our budget this year on 14 cents, we may have to go up next year. We really may. But I don't think we do it this year because we think we'll have to do it next year. That's kind of my whole thought process on this. I don't really disagree with what you're saying, Councilman Smith, at all, with the exception of the ARPA funds and what they're specifically designated for this year in this year's budget. That's not to say that next year we would need additional ARPA funds or additional funds to do those capital items. It was just are we doing a roof? Is that what it is, Michael? I can't remember what that.
Windows and we did the roof last year, but it's other building maintenance
It was
issues
building maintenance
that we
issues.
put off for a while.
Right. And so we're using ARPA funds made sense to do that, and in the sense that we've been using them for that as we've done it. And we got the raises. I understood this council. I heard them loud and clear. Mr. Brooks was like, I want the raises and I want the lowest taxes possible. I'm like, well, that's a crazy thing to say, but let's see if we can do it. And this year, by doing it in the manner with which I presented, I felt like we could. That doesn't mean we can do it that way forever, but to say, let's raise taxes because we think we'll need more money next year. We also have a fully balanced budget this year, not balanced out of reserves, which if you look at our previous budgets, they were always balanced out of reserves. And Ellen did a really interesting job in that she underestimated revenue and overestimated expenses. But and that's a good way to do a budget. And when it came back down to it, we never had to come out of reserves for our budgets annually. And that's why I felt pretty comfortable with that. And Michael's budget this year, with the exception of the ARPA funds, pulls zero out of reserves. It's a balanced budget, and we got the things we wanted. So that's why I was comfortable with 14 cents. I think when we look at budget next year, I think you're right. I think there's a good chance we may have to do something additional. But that doesn't mean we raise taxes this year because we might have to next year.
Let's make sure, as a point of order,
Yes, sir.
we're not discussing right now whether we are going to raise taxes. We're discussing right now what we're going to advertise for the meeting as far as the public hearing is concerned. We can't, without a public hearing, we've got to go through the entire process again. So this is what we would publish at the high level of the tax rate, and then our public hearing
Can always come
process
down.
and debate will then occur thereafter. So I want to make sure we stay in the lane as far as committee is concerned. And vote.
That's fine. Where do we go wrong then in setting the tax rate?
Go ahead.
On a reassessment year, the advertisement for the tax rate cannot happen at the same time as the advertisement for the budget, and they were all in one advertisement. And so they have to be advertised separately, and they were not. Now, historically, the town has done some of that. So we have to have that public hearing that is separate from the budget for the tax rate. Now, we're in a pretty good spot because since we moved to billing mid-year, we don't have to have that officially established until close to the end of this calendar year because we have to then prepare our tax bills to get out the door. Whereas normally our tax bills would be going out now, they're not going out until,
But Mr. Riddick was very emphatic, just for what it's worth, that we need to do something today in order to get the public notice out so that we can have the public hearing there and then for timing so that Ms. Ross isn't
I have two
hung
questions.
up on the hook.
So our discussion today is what we're going to advertise.
Correct.
Very good.
that is it.
Chairman?
So one of my questions has to do with, does it really matter what rate you advertise? Can you advertise what we voted on and then change it when we debate it?
You can't go up.
You have to go down.
So if we advertise 14 cents, there's no opportunity to do anything but 14 or lower. If you advertise 17 cents, you can still vote for 14. It's just, it gives you that room for discussion.
That's exactly the point I was gonna make, Mr. Stallings, is, you know, I was a big proponent of 14 cents. I've kind of changed my mind on that. I don't think we should start there, even though we had a kind of a general consensus of that. Whether it's 15 cents or 17 cents, we need to go at the higher level than the 14 because we can't go up. We can come down, but we can't go up. So the only thing I'm gonna say is, we talked about 17 cents a lot, and you did a wonderful job showing, you know, where it is at 14 cents, 15 cents, 17 cents, 19 cents. My opinion is, let's start with 17, and if we decide we wanna come down, we come down.
I had a second question.
Go ahead.
So how are we doing so far? I mean, we've been through July and August. I mean, you know, we don't have to have the public hearing. It doesn't really, as Michael says, apply until we send out the bills. So my question is, are we gonna make the projection without having to dip into ARPA and/or reserves for this year?
It's kind of hard to tell at this point. Because it's,
And I would say it's a lot harder this year to tell than normal because we changed our tax billing cycle. So our cash flow is going to be different than normal. So for us to be able to do our projections, we can't do it historically because we're going to have an influx of money now that we don't normally have and can't really, it may be
So,
difficult than normal.
my take is, you know, you go looking for an excuse, you're gonna find one. But when I look at the 2022 year, we put $1 million back in the bank, right? I mean, we were to the good by $1 million. So I still really feel in my heart of hearts that our citizens deserve to keep the money in their pocket and that we shouldn't, artificially or not, because of a rainy day fund, you know, make the tax rate higher. They should keep their money until we need it. And like I said, in the last most completed year, to have put $1 million in the bank, seems like maybe we should go as low as we can, right? Because we already have enough.
let's hold on for a second, because what we're trying to get to today is not really solve this. The first thing we're trying to do to get to today, so Mike has suggested that we advertise 17 cents. I'd like 14 cents, but I don't think that's good spirited debate to say out of the gate. Is there anybody that wants anything higher than 17 cents?
I'm okay with 17 cents.
So nobody
I'm
wants
even
anything
okay with
higher.
advertising 17 cents, but I'm telling you,
That-
when we
that's
talk in the meeting, I think it should be lower. Yeah.
So-
Okay.
So,
Randy, you know, my observation is, I mean, even though we did it the wrong way, we did have a public hearing on, we wanted to hear from the citizens, and nobody really spoke out about the tax rate. It seems as though the concern with the tax rate was among us. We want the lowest rate, or we want a mid-rate. You know, I was not a proponent of the 15 cents nor the 14 cent. Yeah, my vote was the 17 cent.
okay. Nothing higher than 17 cents?
Yeah, I think we
Go
go back
once.
to exactly what you said. We can debate it all day long, and that time is coming
Let's
up.
advertise 17 cents.
That will be at November.
We'll have a public
That's why I
hearing in
like working
November,
November council.
and then we'll,
This will allow us to look at what the 17 cents gonna do with the ARPA funds gone.
We can,
You know,
we
so we can
put
compare
that
those
on
numbers
there.
too.
Yes, sir.
yep.
That way you compare them apples to apples.
And by November, will you have the quarterlies? I mean, will we be able to tell anything else?
We should be able to have a better
So you
idea.
have-
Perfect.
Michael, if you would please send Bill that email
I
forthwith.
sure will. Yes, sir. I'll do it.
Thanks.
All right, we'll advertise for that. All right. Anything else for finance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Parks and Recreation Committee.
And I have to leave. I have to be in Norfolk by 5:30, so I've got to.
Keep going. Don't get hung up in one of those speed studies. Next will be operational updates, Amy Novak. I'm sorry.
Wait, so this is my committee, but
Roundtree, yeah.
I'm supposed to be at a football game by 5:30, but it's not as far of a drive. So let's go ahead with the Parks and Rec Committee. I'd like to call it to order. Thank you, Mr. Smith. First thing is a short, I hope, operational update from Ms.
Yes.
Novak.
I was able to attend the Virginia Parks and Recreation Conference a couple weeks ago, and there was a lot of great sessions and information, and I thank y'all for letting me attend that. We currently have two dog park sides. One's open to all, so you don't have to register. So if you're a visitor, you can just use that open dog park, and the other side was registered. We've had a lot of trouble with the gate, locking people in, not just out. So you get stuck in there. If the lock fails, you're stuck inside these two gates along with your puppy. So that's too dangerous. We haven't found a lock that really works out in that outdoor environment with the use it gets. So we are going to open both sides in 2024. They're going to be open to all, and it will return again to what it was intended to be: big dogs to one side, scrappy little pups to the other. So,
Fantastic.
yeah, that's it for
I
operational.
don't think we make much money on fees to use
No,
the dog park
it's,
anyway.
I think it's maybe $1,000.
It's a great idea. Can we advertise that we've done that?
Yeah, well, I want to give the registered participants the use of it through the end of 2023, but in 2024, it'll be well advertised.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item is a discussion item on Parks Maintenance Building.
Yes, so in your packet, you have the illustrations of what the parks maintenance building would look like. And I've got Greg here from Kimberly Horn to explain the cost and what the materials factor into that cost and so on.
So I think, unless I'm mistaken, if you guys are having the same problem with your attachments, it looks like the looter concession is loaded under both items that we're gonna discuss.
No, mine's not.
Yours isn't? Mine's showing that. I'm not able to see the parks. I'm just able to see concession, but maybe it's user error.
Would you like to see?
Yeah, I'll take a hard copy.
You want to pass these out too?
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I appreciate you having me today. Amy's also going to be passing out our engineer's cost estimate for the looter maintenance building and the football concessions building. I know one of the main points of discussion is related to the materials on the buildings. We've worked with an architect to date to create what we feel are two very attractive buildings, meeting the intent of the entrance corridor overlay district. Unfortunately, with the change in the ordinance related to public structures, if we look at building cost alone, the brick on the maintenance building increases that building cost by about 20%. For the skin, going from a pre-engineered metal building to a brick wall structure. And the main cost in that is it actually requires you to change the entire wall section that you build from. So instead of just using pre-engineered metal building and pre-engineered metal building insulation on the inside, it actually requires you to build out a thicker wall section and change much of that pre-engineered construction type. So you'll see in the looter maintenance and that cost estimate, there's about $500,000 for site cost. I've dug into the site cost in quite some detail. Unfortunately, much of the site cost is related to complying with regulations, so there's not much wiggle room in that. And then the building cost is roughly the other $450,000, $500,000 in anticipated construction cost related to that structure. The brick add would be another $100,000 as shown in the elevations there that you guys have in front of you. Now, I did bring, just for discussion purposes, I did bring a character image of a building that is the Virginia Living Museum in Newport News. This is a pre-engineered metal building. It uses muted colors. This was a animal rehab facility that they were adding to the Virginia Living Museum. So the metal panels, you know, traditionally in the rural areas or agricultural areas, you might be thinking something different than what you can actually accomplish with pre-engineered metal buildings, from color palettes to glazing, windows, and other features. So, you know, there are some options that I think we need to take into consideration. I know the budget for the maintenance building, you know, from what I've done and how I came up with this building cost, just to give you a little bit more background. C.W. Brinkley Construction, they built an identical building in the city of Windsor, or town of Windsor, for their public works maintenance facility. We've modeled this maintenance facility off of that same square footage. So I worked with them to see what their costs were. They built that in 2020, I believe. 3 years of price escalation, and then what the cost add for brick was, and it was about $25 additional a square foot of facade.
This cost includes adding the parking that we desperately need out there. It would be in front of the maintenance building where the Womble House used to sit, and it would add 59 more spaces.
So your 1.1 is not just building, it's also 59 spaces?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
That's,
Yeah.
that's an important point to add.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's the 59 spaces, it's the landscaping associated with that parking area to comply with the ECO, it's the stormwater management, it's the utilities to the building, and then a small maintenance yard where they can store infield mix, topsoil, things like that for field repair.
Why was the 59 spaces? How'd you get that number? That's not how many people at once we have cutting grass. I just wonder why we have 59 spaces.
The
For general parking, you mean?
General parking. not
Yeah,
just
this
for
is,
parking.
this
Yeah,
is
it's for
basically
general
overflow parking.
But near the maintenance building.
The location.
Well, it's a roadway that passes by the maintenance building, but it's at the front of the
So
complex.
who do you think would park there?
Oh, football needs every space we have and then some.
And is that too far of a walk? Because right now
Yeah.
they don't want to walk to
No,
the
it's at
bathroom.
the front of the complex where the other overflow area is, at the back of the complex by the batting cages, so that's too far of a walk when you have to overflow over there. So this would be great, and they already use it for parking on game days. People are parked all
Just in the
along the
grass.
entrance and all in the grass, and they already use it as parking.
All right, my second question is, and then I'll open it up, I'll entertain other questions, I'm sure you all have them. I can't say that I specifically know the code exactly, but, I mean, is there any way to see our way clear to having a facade or like the front of the maintenance building brick, and then the other sides not be brick, be the metal, like you're showing from the, I've been over there to the Living Museum, I used to work in Newport News, so just wondering, does all four sides have to be brick? Does that help with the
Well-
cost?
Let me, speak, the one side of the building is facing the wooded area that's by west side. The other side faces another wooded area in the pole barn that exists. The front side you could probably see when you're pulling in, but the front that faces 258, is gonna have, a lot of, landscaping that you probably will likely not be able to see the front of the building after it, gets established.
So is the landscaping included in this cost as well?
Yes, ma'am.
So what are you saying, Amy? What's your recommendation? Are you trying to say you think we should go with the brown metal
Yes.
instead of the brick? Because you're not gonna see it anyway.
I think it's good, I think it makes more sense, it's a cost savings, and it's a maintenance building, it's not a venue or something that we're trying to make look attractive to people. I actually just want it to fade into the background.
And so is that cost estimate here as well?
If you take off the brick construction, Greg,
Yeah,
what do you
the,
estimate?
the rough number would be the building would cost $460,000 in lieu of $560,000.
So it's $100,000 difference, you're
It's a
saying?
$100,000 difference, yes,
Which
ma'am.
I'm sorry, you said that. Okay, anybody have any questions? And this is budgeted or no, or this is just because we
Yeah,
feel like
there's a
it?
portion of it budgeted, I can't remember what the ARPA number is, but I think it included the football concession building, and it was all lumped into one, and we were trying to break it out. So I think we have 400,000 total in ARPA funds for these two projects.
And it's 1.3.
Well, that doesn't include the football concession.
No,
It's-
I'm saying
it-
we-
Plus the football concession.
200
it's-
something.
it's
I looked
about-
ahead.
about-
I looked ahead, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's about 1.314.
yeah.
Okay. Questions?
Couple comments. Start off with, we recently, at Planning Commission, and was passed by council, insisted that any state, town, or federally owned buildings built inside the historic overlay district would have to meet those of private. And our intention on doing that was with West Side Elementary, when they put a couple trailers in there, we had no way to combat it. And that's been less than a year, and as a town, we're asking to make an exception to this rule, and I don't think that sets a particularly good precedent for what we're trying to do. My second point is that Luther Sports is a world-class facility, already built as a world-class facility, and I think we should continue to keep it a world-class facility, and I think brick makes it look spectacular. We have a 1.146 total to build this facility without brick, so $100,000 additional to make it brick so it matches everything else, I think is a reasonable accommodation if we're gonna do this at all, and Amy certainly needs it. I'm not taking any of that away. We're just really kind of talking about what it ought to look like. It's a big number. It's a big ask.
It is.
No doubt. But I have personally committed myself to whatever I can do for the kids out of the Luther Sports and whatever teams are out there, that we do everything we can, and this building helps with that, and then it helps keep our appearance up in town. So those are my thoughts.
Yep. That's
I
true.
mean, this is also going to be used for other maintenance locations, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. This is for all of our parks maintenance needs.
Right, okay.
And Luther Sports has specialized equipment too. I also want to add that it's important to protect it and provide structure and shelter for it.
So anything that needs to be called upon for Clarence Park or Windsor Castle?
This will be their home
housed
base.
here?
Yes, sir. Because at Windsor Castle, we have limited maintenance facilities. We've made use of the barns. The guys have done a great job converting it and making it work, but all we have is lean-tos to protect the mowers out there. We don't have any drive-in spaces that are completely enclosed.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr.
As
Councilman Hall?
much as I'm opposed to adding $100,000 for the brick, I understand the brick in the historic area or whatever. Not many people will be able to see it unless they go in there. And I think the $100,000 can be better spent to utilize it on something else for that. Shrubbery being one of them that you've already mentioned is gonna happen. I understand it is just a maintenance building, but it's gonna be a secure maintenance building that needs to be protected, and I get that. But I don't see the $100,000 for the brick facade.
My observation is we're way off base with the cost. What was the total amount we set aside in the offer to take care of this?
I think there's only $400,000 total, and that is for both the maintenance building and the football concession building.
Earmarked, right?
Yeah, earmarked total. Yeah, so
That was a
funding's a big issue.
my thought process was to look at this as two ways: is what we wanted, and then how we were going to fund it separate, because they are two different issues in my opinion. But not to be not related, because they are. Because you can say, well, I want the $7 million building, but I can afford $100,000. That does make a difference. Don't get me wrong. But when you're at 1.1, well, we're at almost 1.4 for the two buildings. We're only $1 million short on these two buildings. So perhaps this conversation is moot altogether because we don't know we haven't decided where this other $1 million is gonna come from.
We can talk about tax rates.
Yeah, I was gonna wait for you to say it, not me. Anyway. But if you take $100,000 off for brick, whether or not, so we're now at 1.3, we're still $900,000 short. So perhaps the conversation in itself is moot until we figure out exactly how we intend to fund this.
Well, we do still have 1.2 million in ARPA left,
There is, yeah, there's additional ARPA
above the
funds out there.
400,000 that was earmarked.
Yeah, there is additional ARPA funds out there.
And I know that this council wanted to do something with the ARPA funds that, is demonstrable, right? That you can point back to and say, look, something kind of good came, I hate to even say that, but this is what we did with the money that we got from the government.
And it'll be there forever.
You have that opportunity, I think, to consider that.
Or will the concession stand take priority over the maintenance building?
I think the concession building is lower cost and it's smaller, so I bet it would be quicker to build. Greg?
So that's the
Yeah.
second issue, or the third
Yes.
issue that's on the agenda.
I mean,
right?
generally speaking, there's really two options here when we get into kind of phasing this out. We could bid them separately. We could bid them together since you already have a contractor on site and try to get some economy of scale. But the football facility, once it goes through planning and gets approved by the planning commission as part of the ECO, that could move forward very quickly with the funds that I guess are already allocated. The discussion of the maintenance facility funding then could continue. To Randy's point, it is a world-class facility that is thriving, and they have their very nice equipment sitting under lean-tos. So I think this is a good opportunity to help facilitate this development for the town Parks and Rec in what I consider a very high quality of life town that focuses on its people and its parks. So I know it sounds like a lot of money, and
It is.
It is a lot of money. Yeah.
The numbers unfortunately are what they are in this market. I know Mr. Pack and Mr. Smith know some of this. It's the unfortunate reality of where development has found itself in 2023.
So I have a few more comments that may spark other ideas or, just discussion. And so I think we've moved on and we're considering both of these structures. And this is what we asked Amy to come back to us with was numbers, right? What's it actually going to cost? The last time I think it came to us for our consideration, it was like, oh, okay, you may need to take a few more dollars out of ARPA because things have gone up, right? And we're like, well, how much have they gone up and what exactly? And so I think she's followed our direction and gotten us hard costs and real costs. It's still my opinion that we need to spend some money and do a master plan for that site. I still think we should survey the community, the needs, how we're gonna grow, ethnicities, who plays what the spies group needs, what the baseball group needs, and do a whole plan before we spend 1 point anything. I think we need to know what we're gonna do there long range, like a master plan. And I don't know how much that's going to cost. I think we've got really soft numbers, but we've never done the right thing and really looked at what needs to go there. I know we've listened to a lot of constituencies, and that, I think, has to do with my second point, and that is that, the looter, the baseball group, let me just say, I know contributes money. Amy and I talked about this week. So the baseball group, outside of the $300,000 that they borrowed from us, right, with a repayment of 10 years at $30,000 a year, I think the baseball group pays $25,000 a year.
Yes, ma'am.
For rental of the facilities, and the football group pays $2,000, which didn't go up even after we put up the lights and everything else. The baseball group, I see a fall festival posted. I know they work really hard on a golf tournament, so they are finding ways to find other sources of revenue other than, council got ARPA money, so we're going to build a nice building and not really contribute to it. I think they should have some skin in the game, right? I think they should have some equity in that. And I think we should go to the group and say that. Now, that being said, last time we talked about this, I was kind of against a 2-story building because I said, what do you need a 2-story building for just to match the other concession stand and bathroom area? It's going to cost so much more. And then I had a discussion about what really the vision is for using the top floor of a building. Are you just going to store, Reese's cups there? And brooms and extra equipment and jerseys? And what I've been told from at least one person who's credible on the SPIES board is that they really intend to use that as a meeting space, but from a day-to-day basis as a tutoring space. They're seeing, and I mean the Smithfield Youth Packer Sports Organization, is seeing a ton of learning loss with their kids through COVID and everything else. So it's not just the boys, it's the girls too. It's a vibrant cheerleader program and a growing football program, and those kids need help, and they have people that are willing to tutor when when it's not your time to be on the field. You can go up and get extra help, and it would be free to the families. And so it kind of gave me a different perspective from the last time we talked about this and why we needed a second floor. Remember, I made the comment like, I'm on a lot of boards and we don't have a meeting space that's just our place to meet. When I heard that avenue of it, I thought, well, that's what we should be doing, right? Because anything for the kids, I mean, we should be addressing learning loss and tutoring and helping them be better. So anyway, I've changed my mind a little bit on that. Give them a second story. I think that's fantastic. But I do think that we should have a master plan before we commit to this large number of dollars. I also do think we should consider ARPA and what kind of legacy and what kind of impact we're going to leave from what was a terrible disaster, and, you know, that something kind of rose from those ashes. So those are my comments. I know everybody's got places to be, but anyone else have comments? Valerie?
In reference to what you're saying, I concur with it. We definitely need a master plan, but I also think that as a town, we need to make a commitment. What is our commitment going to be to young people in our community? Because other than building the Luda Sportsplex, I've never really heard us say about what our commitment is. You have a son that plays football and you're in tune with that. I think that that's a good observation for after-school tutoring. Definitely our kids need that. But I also think that as a town, that we need to make a commitment to youth sports. And a correction, SRA committed to $300,000, but I think we reduced that commitment, that liability to $250,000.
No, ma'am. We gave them a year grace with COVID. We
just
haven't
tacked it on to the
reduced
end.
it.
I thought when all of that stuff was going on
No,
with,
ma'am.
the drainage.
No,
And
ma'am.
I'm not even really considering that. They're paying for a piece of property with that, right? I'm talking about, they pay $25,000 a month to rent.
No, a
the-
year.
the field. Oh,
I wish.
excuse me, per year, yeah. That'd be nice, right? So per year to rent those spaces, football pays $2,000. It's not the same. It's not apples and apples, right? But it's
The
just,
commitment between the two are different, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and
I
the
agree.
football team actually work with a different demographics of people too.
They do.
But one of my conversations with Sean Kelly is that SRA has fundraising seemed to fine tune. And I think that that's what the Smithfield Packers Youth League needs to work on.
I agree.
Because they don't have that fundraising aspect of it down.
Wait, if I could say a couple of things. I think you as a council show a huge commitment to youth athletics by preparing these fields for all these games and practices. We can't forget that contribution. Buildings aside, those fields are incredible. They're the best in the area, even compared to our local high schools.
Oh, I'm not talking
I know,
about the
I know, but you
physical
wanna,
aspect
you
of
wanna,
it. I'm
to
talking
say,
about a commitment
what do we
to
offer?
Those kids themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, do we want to provide them with a concession stand?
Right.
That has a boardroom where they can provide
Sure.
afternoon tutoring. I think I'm not questioning the condition of either one of the fields, because I think our staff do an
You
excellent
do.
job with that. But I think that we needed to be committed in other ways
Mm-hmm.
to youth sports.
Well, I just don't want the focus on these buildings for some reason is taking it off of what's already delivered out there. It's amazing.
Amy,
what the
if I
fields look like.
can, I
Sure.
think we understand. I understand that we get where you're coming from, for sure.
Yeah.
We understand.
Okay.
If I may, we've talked about concession stand, we've talked about boardrooms, we've talked about this. I had a chance to meet with these folks and hear from them across the table. One thing we haven't talked much about today were restrooms, the restroom aspect of it, and the need to have, you know, in reasonably close proximity, especially if you're in football gear and trucking across a field, as we well know, anybody who's played football, it's a heck of a lot harder to go across the field in a football outfit or uniform than it is in baseball gear. So anyway, I just think that at this juncture, understanding that we've got a need, obviously, for the maintenance building, no doubt about that. If we can start moving, and I'll welcome other comments, but I think that it's really important that we recognize the deficiency that's there and the appearance that's there. When you look across the field, and I understand, I've done my homework on it. The bottom line was that football was never intended to be there. It was a track, but it's there now. It's there now, and it draws, and we heard just a little while ago about the parking spaces. We don't have enough, it obviously is attracting a number of folks, and it provides a very, very useful purpose for our children, our kids. So I don't know how bad the lean-tos or what we're dealing with now are contributing to, you know, the degradation of our equipment, things like that. I think we're all committed to building that building as well. But I think at this juncture, I was convinced with, to an extent, their discussions I had with them the other day, and I'd like to see us kind of work toward building something that's useful and provides a better quality of life for all folks that attend those ball games. I mean, I'd hate to see, you know, my kid's grandmother, you know, have to use the bare necessities and go trucking all the way across there. And I've dealt with porta potties. I mean, Smithfield High School's done the very best they can. My kid played baseball, and that's what we had there. I
Still
don't
do.
like them. I just don't
It's still
like them.
porta potties, right.
So, and I'm sure my wife didn't like them either, for sure. So I just think if we can move in the direction there. Master plan, absolutely. Both you're my colleagues.
So in a
have
master
really-
plan, Amy, do you think that in a master plan, either of these two buildings would change?
No, I do not. And I want to remind council again, there's not a whole lot more buildable land out there.
So do we even need a master plan? If we're gonna do this, do we need to spend the money on a master plan?
That's what we need to look at. I can show you all the available remaining acreage, and it's all at the front of the complex because the backside is ravines and such. I looked for a high ropes course company to see if they were interested in using that for that, but they said they already have two in our area, so.
I've
Luke
kind of
Sports was a
seen
good
conceptual plans, though, for an indoor building to support inclement weather practice, volleyball, basketball, some indoor sports. Basketball is needed, more basketball courts. And where was that? You were part of that, the conceptualization. I'm sorry, did we have a sidebar?
Yeah, I've got, you know, since we've already got, what was it, 400,000?
Yes, sir.
And that's for something out there.
That's
at
for
this point in
the
time.
two buildings. It was a shared cost because the
okay.
thought was to do them together, build them at once.
Well, since we've got, you know, the maintenance, not the maintenance building, but the concession facility with the bathrooms, which is, I hear a lot of talk about that, you know. And it looks like to me we've got the money already budgeted for this building here with some left over. So that it'll give us some time to hash out what we want to do going forward with the maintenance building. And I don't think it'd be far behind. Like Randy, sometimes we need to think about where the money's gonna come from. If that give us some time to look at that and see how we can get to that point to proceed with the maintenance building. You made it, it could be set up for two different contractors anyway. It doesn't make any difference. Whoever wants to bid this can bid it, and we can move forward on it. This is not like you've got to order something to wait on it to be pre-manufactured. You know, you can start buying the materials right away. So this could get going pretty quickly since we have it already budgeted. And I think it'd be a great asset, you know, and then we can talk about what we want to do possibly with the awful funds we're going to save by raising taxes.
So, Councilman Smith, if I could just kind of recap what I think you're saying, maybe you can tell me if you think this is right or not, is that we had earmarked up to $400,000 to spend on buildings at the complex already. And so what you're saying is let's advance the concession stand concept to council for a vote to be paid for by already earmarked funds and to continue to consider a master plan and a maintenance building.
Right, exactly.
As time allows.
That gives us time to do that. And if we don't need a master plan, there's no need in spending the money.
Just keep talking about it,
Yeah,
right.
So this gives her the opportunity to get that, and I'm with what Vice Mayor Butler said, and it gives it this little second story. I think it's great. I mean, kids are falling behind. It gives them some more opportunities to meet and hold classes or whatever they need to do. I think it's a great asset to the community and for the children.
Does anybody disagree with that, sending the concession building to council for approval?
With second floor. Is that what, we're all in agreement?
I'm sorry, with what?
With the second floor, is that right?
Yeah, as presented. You all had an opportunity to review the plans, right? It's beautiful.
Does the general consensus align on the maintenance building architecture or?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful too. If Windsor has it, we certainly should, right? I'm a little competitive with that little
Well,
town.
Windsor's is metal, so. I'm just
Oh,
gonna throw that out there.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Even better.
No.
So we should have brick then.
Well, moving forward on that, if I may, you've got a line drawn in here on that maintenance building at the bottom, like a wainscoting.
It's a water table, yes, sir.
Is that just a water table? Okay, well, couldn't that be a brick wainscoting and then some other material above that that could complement, not necessarily brick, but along with brick? Maybe
Sure.
Maybe some kind of siding, some smart board or something like that that would sort of fit into, you know, what we're trying to achieve with the historic aspect of the park.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We can rework this a million different ways. The unfortunate reality is once we change that wall section, that's where that cost increases
Right.
from the metal building.
But now I understand, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, the sides can be metal, is that true? Since they're not exposed to the highway? We've got a prime example of Main Street Baptist Church. It's got brick and block on one side painted. So it's not completely brick.
Yeah, that was my original comment. I'm not sure that I
Yeah.
totally
No,
understand the code.
Main Street's Mission Center is total brick.
It's block on the side painted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's brick on
On
the
the front.
facade, yes.
I don't, go ahead, Randy. I was gonna say,
Yeah, I don't remember, I think you're right, Mike. I think the side that is facing the public right away must conform with the historic overlay. So theoretically, if there were two sides that were not, they would not have to comply.
And
I think.
Yeah, in the rear too, maybe, but it's because I've seen that done.
Tammy can.
Yeah, good.
There she is. I was looking.
And there's a microphone right there, Tammy.
So, because of the way that the section AA was drafted, because it's a public building, the entire building must comply. It's not just if it's visible. This was to apply for any public building that was located on any state, federal, county-owned, or town-owned property.
Is there a waiver for potential for, I mean, is there a
Yes.
waiver path?
Yes, we did create a waiver.
Apply for a waiver.
I understand what you're saying, being a public building, but it's not really for public, it's for the Parks and Recreation people to
Staff
use.
It's for like tractors, right?
For tractors and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's owned by a public
Entity, yeah, that's
entity.
the public.
That's what.
But there are waivers that we can get to
Yes, sir.
bypass that, okay.
That's what we did with the maintenance building down at the Public Works, correct?
Well, that was in before the code change,
But that was
am I
for
right?
the- Yeah, that's for the code change.
Right, okay.
Okay, well, we're gonna continue to talk about the maintenance building, right, at a subsequent committee meeting, perhaps October.
There's two things you gotta do on the maintenance building. You gotta figure out how we're gonna fund it, and then figure out, and when you're discussing how you're gonna fund it, whether you wanna spend money for brick or some other piece. So Amy's done what we asked, we have numbers. Now we gotta figure out, I think we did a really good thing by advancing the concession building, and we'll figure, and Amy needs this building, so we need to figure out if and when or how we're gonna move forward with that.
Right.
Quickly, yeah.
That's our next discussion item, I think.
All right, cool.
Any other comments or things to come before the Parks and Recreation Committee? So I'd like to advance before I close the meeting, just to be clear, for Councilman Smith's suggestion, and I think what I've heard from everyone else, we're gonna advance the concession building out at Luter for a vote to council, and we'll put the maintenance building on discussion for October committee meetings,
Yeah.
as well as the master plan, and if we still need that or not.
Mike, thanks for making that a priority.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And before I close this committee also, I'd like to see if you guys are gonna be really mad if I leave. If I can leave.
We all gonna be mad.
Okay. I show up late and leave early to go to the football game, but thanks.
Thanks,
Okay,
sweetie.
meeting closed.
Next is Public Works operational updates. We have Chairman Brooks,
Yes,
Councilman
sir.
Smith, and Roundtree.
I would like to call the Public Works Committee to order, and we are really limited on what we have, so I'm just gonna turn it over to Mr. Jack Reed.
Good afternoon again. The Pagan Road drainage project, the trees are down and we'll begin the ditch work soon. We may have a utility conflict, but we're working through that as we speak. Blair's completed stormwater repairs on Greenbrier Lane and repaired the sidewalk in the cul-de-sac. Goodrich continues tree trimming around town, so if you see trees that need trimming, it's likely on his list. He's got a long list he's working on right now. And we're gonna have town hall pressure wash and clean. We're gonna have the bricks kind of rehab. So you may may see a change in how Town Hall looks in the near future. We're going to actually seal the upper portion to hopefully have it look nice longer, and then after that, we're going to look at having the windows replaced, but need to have it pressure washed first. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Councilman Brooks?
Yes.
I just, Mr. Reed, how are you satisfied with the new landscaping vendor?
So far, so good. Yeah, they've got it right to work.
I just wanted to give my comment that I feel like it was 2 weekends ago, maybe. I know it was specifically over a weekend. There was not one, not two, but three very large Schultz trucks that were in town and doing mowing, and I was very pleased. I thought it looked good, and they looked very professional, and certainly seemed to be following all the rules. So, thank you.
Thanks for the comments.
I heard one positive comment on that as well, which is unusual, that somebody would comment on that, but they did.
Good. Any other further questions for Mr. Reed? With that, that will conclude the Public Works Committee.
Public Buildings and Welfare, Vice Mayor Butler, Councilman Holland Pack.
I'd like to open public buildings and welfare, and Tammy, all public hearings are yours.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. We will separate these as 4 individual public hearings, but I will combine them in the staff report as the Planning Commission favorably recommended all 4 of these. These are for the existing shipping containers. There are 5 located at 1409 South Church Street, 3 located at 901 West Main Street, a total of 5 located at 600 West Main Street, and then 1 shipping container located at 101 Moore Avenue. Again, these are existing shipping containers that we had identified as being located on these properties, and we are bringing them into compliance. Specifically at 901 West Main Street, the Planning Commission did favorably recommend this application for approval under the condition that there are no items stored on top of these shipping containers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Any questions? That's it. I do want to commend the Planning Commission for reviewing our ECO compliances. I did go back and view the meeting. That's a luxury now. I can sit at home and watch instead of having to come to the meetings. But I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. I see the mayor has packed up. There are a couple of things.
No, I haven't packed up.
We don't have to discuss it, but there are some things that I'd like to mention, since this is my committee. The newsletter that we get weekly from the town manager, I look at it as a social newsletter that we get to let us know about the farmer's market, touring. Personally, I like to see something that's more operational, to let us know if we have some outstanding jobs out there, what's been accomplished, or if there's any new projects that are gonna come before us. I like to see that information before the citizens actually see it. I don't know how you all feel about that. And you don't really have to give me any feedback now. We talked about Luda Sports, the Luda's Acres. The other thing, and this has come as a result of the Grange project before us. I have written down here at least 5 projects. Some we have approved and some may be new coming before us. I think as a town, we need to decide on, do we want to grow? Do we want any more growth? And if we do, how are we going to manage that? Because that seemed to be a big concern of our citizens, especially with the density and the traffic. Not that I'm not concerned with the schools. I think Amy, Tammy, and our staff did our due diligence, and if we send it to the school, they report back to us to say that they can accommodate it. It's on them, it's not on us. But I think that that's something that we should have a discussion about. We had the retreat, we set some money aside, I guess Michael, to get with a consultant. I think the things that we decided on, there needs to be a checkpoint. We need to follow up. This is what we said, where are we, and is this what we want to do?
Mayor's still here.
I'm sorry. So if there are no other
There are.
concerns or comments?
There are.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought up your points later. Our beloved 7-Eleven on South Church Street that's been there for 100 years appears to have transferred ownership. I don't know if they're renting or what. And they're gonna open a vape shop. Right next to Q Daddy's. And we have no ordinances that would not allow them to do so.
What can we do to change that?
Well, that's what I would like council to instruct the planning commission to come up with. Vape shops are not what I envision our southern charming town to look like, but we don't have a way to stop them, and we have a number in town. They sell tobacco water pipes in these stores. I always call them a bong, you know, but they can call it whatever they wish to get around the laws. And we have legislation that is going to allow marijuana to be sold legally in the state and recreational places. And we have not done anything to discuss what we'd like to see here in town. I believe in the legislation written that the towns can outlaw them within their borders. I believe that's the way it's written. So I think we need to have discussion on that, and we need to, on what we intend those to be. And then, you know, we've done all this work. We had all this conversation about Pierceville and what it should look like and not look like. But I guarantee nobody on either side of that argument wanted to see a vape shop anywhere in Smithfield, or potentially another auto parts store. I mean, it's really difficult for us to manage those, but I think we need to instruct our planning commission to find us a way, with the help of Ms. Clary, to at least eliminate vape shops or some limit on it. We're meeting some changes that we haven't seen before, but when I found out today that that was gonna be a vape shop, I couldn't have been more disappointed.
Are we certain it is? Because I'd heard, is the application in for a vape shop?
We have not received an application for a vape shop. A sign company did reach out to us about a sign indicating that it would be a vape shop.
And that would be a permitted use, right? So there's nothing we can do?
Correct. It's treated as retail sales.
Wow. Is there anything we can do moving forward when a building changes hands, like to beautify the landscaping some or bring it up to date? Is there anything we can do with that? 'Cause a lot of times, all that stuff just dies over years and never gets replaced.
We can look and see. I don't know that the change of ownership triggers conformance, but we can see what we can come up with.
Well, if we don't have an application, is there a way that, if the planning commission and town council does not want an establishment like a vape shop coming into town, can we fast track this and enact something to maybe prohibit those establishments that would not be conducive to that part of town?
We would have to do research to see what other localities, how they distinguish, if we can even distinguish between retail sales and a vape shop. Honestly, we're just not sure. We have been working on the marijuana side of it, trying to prepare something to bring to Planning Commission, because we do know that that's forthcoming. Again, if we do change the zoning ordinance, it would be a public hearing before the Planning Commission and then a public hearing before Town Council, before it would be brought into the zoning ordinance.
We probably can't stop this one, but we can prepare for the future.
Well, let's direct the planning commission to understudy that, or take that under study and figure out how we're going to do that. Our representative to the planning commission.
That's what I was looking for your support in.
Everybody else feel the same way? Consensus oriented? Okay.
Ms. Clary, can we just add that to planning commission's agenda and their next
Yes, sir.
meetings? Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Ms. Butler.
Just real fast, there's 3 other items, and I'll be very, very brief. You notice the last one is a recognition of 2023 Spring Summer SRA softball accomplishments. That fell right in line with we had the young men here earlier, and I received a request, so they'll be coming here, and what I'll do is I'll have that right off the bat, first on the agenda. We'll recognize them for their accomplishments, and they've got some significant ones as well, and do the Pledge of Allegiance for us, and just give you a heads up as where that'll be and what I'm planning on as far as that's concerned. So other than that, is there anything else to come before committee? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Thank y'all.